Hi, Tonette again. Today I want to talk about my dad. My dad was my best friend. My parents were divorced when I was about 6. My mom remarried a pretty abusive man. We made our peace before he passed, but he wasn't always nice. Let's just put it that way. I acted up a lot as a teenager, and the first time my stepdad actually beat me, like he used to beat my mom, I decided I wanted to go live with Dad. It took a few months for my dad to find a place for us. He wound up finding what we knew as the White House, where we grew up. It was a big white house, and we had the main level, and then there were apartments above us and an apartment below us, and then um, some cracker box apartments behind. But yeah, we had the presidential suite. It was an old house built in the late 1800s, I believe. So I went from, running away, staying away from the house as much as I could. I couldn't stand to see Mom get beat. I think the only time the cops were ever called was I called them because I heard the knife drawer open, and I thought he had the knife, not Mom, to defend herself. But either way, back then, they took him away for the evening. Probably should have taken him to detox. Well, if you know, you know. Anyway, to put putting up decorations, we had this beautiful proscenium between the front room and the room with the fireplace, putting up crystals in the windows, singing, "Our house is a very, very, very fine house." You know, no, maybe you don't. I don't suppose anybody ever had the experience like I did with my dad. We were very close. There were times where we could communicate across the room without a word. Yeah, we were that close. Um, he was a strong man. He wasn't very tall. He worked construction most of his life. When my parents got divorced, uh, he had a teepee, and his friends had the property up on Aspen Mountain. He'd live in the teepee during the summer and move into town, and the people who owned the property would winter it. It was a 2-story teepee. Some of my favorite memories are up there. Me and my brother would go up there for summer breaks. The most beautiful place this side of heaven, as far as I'm concerned. Definitely some of the most fond memories. Um, I lived with my dad till I was almost 21. He was my Lamaze coach when I had my son at 17. He he used to have 5 mile 5 miles of running in, have the paper read, the the crossword puzzle half done before he'd wake me up at 6 a.m. Yeah, he was a wonderful man. Novel and not night kind of guy. He always had a book by his bedstand. Well, as as the time came closer for him to move on to where he moved on to, he was living in Vegas at the time, so I went from Colorado to Vegas uh, on a Greyhound. I picked up some belongings from his place, including the book that was on his nightstand. Happened to be about quantum physics. Um, Went and stayed in California for a couple weeks before he passed. The night before he died, I'm in his room, and as I said, I was very close to my dad. Even the nurse said she believes that people can hear you when they're in a coma. So I'm singing songs to him. And when I when I got to American Pie, I decided, oop, that's probably not the most appropriate song. So I moved on. He used to sing me Daddy's Little Girl every year on my birthday, even on my 21st birthday, sitting there on his lap in the middle of the bar in front of all our friends. And so I sang to him and I talked to him, and it just seemed appropriate to read out of his quantum physics book to him. And pretty soon the sliding glass door in the ICU shuts very, very quietly. So I just kept going. I finally needed a break. Went down, got some air, come back up, and the nurse, she goes, "I am so sorry." Oh, I was like, oh. Yeah, that's when I had to take a break. My dad just went. She goes, no, nothing like that. She said, I can tell that you and your dad have a very special bond. And that's when she told me, she goes, I do believe that people can hear you when you're in a coma, which I already knew. That's why I was talking to him. And she goes, you've got a lovely singing voice, but when you started reading out that quantum physics book, I thought it was going to put me to sleep, and I've got a 12-hour shift, so that's why I shut the sliding glass door. And I was relieved, obviously. It's like, oh, okay. You don't find it fascinating? And she goes, no, not really. I've always found it fascinating. He passed away the next day. I remember the doctor coming and touching me on the shoulder, saying he's gone, and I kind of felt robbed, growing up in a Hollywood dominated type of existence. I was expecting him to wake up from his coma and give me some words of wisdom, or at least see his spirit lift out of his body. It was nothing like that. It was kind of a letdown. But I was Daddy's little girl. So when I asked my little brother, can you did Mom's eulogy last year. My parents died 51 weeks apart to the day. Yeah, and it wasn't because my dad missed my mom so much. It just happened to be that's the way their appointments were. And my brother looks at me and he goes, I don't know. Can you? Well, I did. And then 2 weeks later, I started massage school. I was supposed to start like when he first got sick. And so I postponed my start date. And sometimes I think that's part of why I did so well. I had finally talked him into coming back to Denver. He was going to help me with the kids while I went to school, and then he had to go and die on me. Gosh, don't you hate it when that happens? So yeah, and this was in 2003. I miss him to this day, but I tell you, he knew what was up. He is one of the smartest men I will ever know, and he knew. He'd be in the trenches with us, I guarantee you. So, there's a little bit about my dad. He used to call me Chicken because I was a preemie. I was like 6 weeks early, because that just happened to be the day that my older brother was taken off the critical list. There's a video back there that tell you all about that story. But anyway, yeah, I didn't miss him, my dad. I loved him very much. And I hold this hope that we'll be reunited with him someday. I believe in God the Father and Jesus Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. 3 in 1. And this would be usually the place where I break out in song and dance, or at least song, maybe not dance. But I think I've gone long enough. All right. Be blessed.